Well, as we continue to commemorate Women's Month, tonight we speak to Mbali Shongwe. She's a rape survivor who's fighting a cause many women are too scared to fight. She underwent invasive tests only to be told the DNA evidence in her case was insufficient. She's questioning how South Africa can truly celebrate Women's Month while women face violence and insecurity every single day. She started a campaign called #MyVoiceForJustice. Mbali Shongwe joins us now live to discuss this. Mbali, thank you so much for your time. I guess we want the backstory. Just tell us what you went through before we actually get to why we're here.
Hi, Shahan. Thank you so much for having me. So my experience, I was raped at the end of 2019, and after a few days of questioning whether or not I should report, I decided to follow the correct steps just because I thought of the fact that I wouldn't want this person to be out there and potentially have the chance to do it again. My whole reporting process was very traumatic to me. I tried to report twice before I actually was able to get a statement taken. The first time I was taken to the back of a police station and left there for 3 hours and nobody came. And the second time I was ruthlessly flirted with by the officer who was trying to take my statement. And so I really, already before I went to report, I had distrust in the system and I felt incredibly uncomfortable when I did go forward. But eventually my statement was taken and I was able to get my samples taken and undergo a medical examination to assess the trauma that had been done to me. With my case, from the time I reported it, for about a year, I heard very little. Every time I tried to follow up or check up on my case, my investigating officers had no information for me, or I was told that they would call back and they never did. And after a year of crying and having to find private channels to find out more about my case and where my DNA sat and what was happening, I was told that my DNA sample that was taken was insufficient. That was after a year of waiting and thinking that something was being done. Shortly after that, my case was closed without any leads being followed up on. None of my witnesses were ever called in. My assailants, whose identity was known, was never picked up, was never questioned. No CCTV was ever analyzed. Basically, everything in my case was exactly the same as the day I reported it, and it was closed. I was not able to reopen it, and I'm just sitting here wondering how many other women are sitting in my position and how many other women have gone through the trauma that I had to go through with no results at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's actually quite shocking and disturbing to hear what you went through. But also we know that police have often failed people who have fallen victim to rape for years. It's sad that it hasn't improved at all. So I'm guessing that this is why you're launching My Voice for Justice, this campaign. I know that you say that South Africans need to play a more active role in tackling the challenges associated with GBV. And before we get to that, I want to talk to you about how you're trying to get police to change the way they work, because we're often promised by the police minister that GBV cases are handled with care, but this clearly isn't the case, given what you're saying.
Yes, 100%. I think that the aim of this campaign was to bring forth the experiences of survivors. I think a lot of the time when we look at the news and we look at what's happening in our country, there's a lot of statistics, very depressing statistics, but we've become so desensitized to the issue because it's something that we read and we engage with every day. And so our cry and our attempt with this campaign is to bring these issues to the forefront and to sort of breathe life into the statistics. And what we're asking for is transparency. One of the biggest issues in our country is the DNA data backlog that is currently sitting at over 300,000 cases, which means 300,000 potential perpetrators, assaulters, rapists, murderers are out there and they are part of our society. And so we're trying to ask police and ask the government what are the steps that are being taken, because there's often the blanket statement of the backlog is being processed. We are trying to minimize the number and get everything back on track. But there's no transparency with victims, with the public, as to what the actionable steps are that are being taken. Another thing is the issue, as I've said, of police sensitivity. I do believe that at this point, I don't believe I can have full faith in the government and ask government to do better. But I think a combination of civil society and government training can be done to ensure that victims are supported. I think that one of the greatest failures is the fact that victims, when these things happen, they go home and they sit with their trauma. They're not even in a place where they're willing to report it because they know nothing's going to be done. And if they have the courage to go there, they should be met with someone who believes them, someone who has the sensitivity and has the care to recognize the trauma and the impact that it's had on somebody's life. And so the combination of the DNA data backlog and police sensitivity are our main cries during this campaign, and what we really feel like are issues that can be solved and issues that are not far out of our reach. It just takes a combination of action and intention and commitment to addressing them.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you had any success in getting any form of justice for what has happened to you? Have you spoken to police officials, the police ministry, or anything of that sort, since you say that you've been left without any answers in terms of this case?
Yeah, for me, the justice system has failed me greatly. And I think that after my case was closed, and I did try for about a month or two to get in contact and reopen my case, and I was just met with just more violence and a lot of cruelty at the hands of the police officers. I have decided to leave my case as it is. The case is closed. I will not be seeking any alternative forms of justice. But for me as a survivor, I've sort of redefined what justice means to me. And this campaign and the work that I do in the GBV space is my way of getting justice for myself. If I can help other survivors, if I can speak to an issue that people are not often willing to come forward and address, I feel like by doing the work and trying to better the situation on the ground, I have found justice for myself.
Yeah, it's so sad to hear that, and I absolutely understand why you're doing what you're doing. So just in terms of this DNA backlog and what you're calling for through this movement, any joy there then?
No. I think, I've been involved with a few campaigns and a few initiatives that have been trying to address the DNA backlog. And I think one of the biggest hurdles is the fact that the people in power are not willing to come to the conversation or to enter the dialogue. On many occasions, the DNA oversight body has been invited to participate in conferences and come and speak to people and find out what the issues are and address them and let us understand what's actually happening on the ground. But there's no energy being put towards addressing it from their side. I think that we've heard numerous times when they do address us as a nation that actions are being taken to decrease and minimize the backlog, but no one is sure what those actions are, and we are not aware if that is even happening. And at this point, it just seems like it's a lot of empty promises and a lot of speaking, but very little being done.
Wow. I'm going to try and get officials to actually comment on the story next week when I'm back on air. So I'll probably try to get you back on air as well to try to get some sort of sense about what went wrong. Just tell me about your message regarding Women's Month. I see that you say there's no way it should be celebrated given the insecurities, or the lack of security, I should say, that women face in this country.
Yeah, I think that unfortunately we live in a society that loves to gloss over things and sort of pretend as though everything is okay when it's not. And so despite the harrowing statistics and despite the situation that women face every day, Women's Month comes and suddenly there's this national call to celebrate women. And I feel like that's very unfair given the position that most of us are in every single day. And so our message this Women's Month is to, if you want to give a gift, if you want to celebrate women, can we give them the gift of security? Can you give us the gift of respect? And can you address the issues that are impacting our lives every day? I think with this campaign, we want survivors to come forward to share their stories. I think there's a huge healing element in that, and also an awareness element. We want people to know these are the things that are happening, and if we're going to do something this Women's Month, let's look at the issues, let's think of ways to address them, and let's start doing the work instead of glossing over and celebrating things. There's nothing to celebrate at all.
All I can say is that I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I know that I'm not the person you want to hear that from, but I do hope that you get success in this campaign, and I will try to help you reach out to the police ministry as well as anyone in any department that can fast-track this DNA process. Even if we hold them accountable, I guess that's the way forward, right? Mbali Shongwe of the hashtag My Voice for Justice campaign, thank you so much for your time and your insight. I'll definitely talk to you again next